Ethan stood in the grand foyer of his family's mansion, a sprawling testament to wealth that now felt more like a mausoleum than a home. The golden chandeliers cast a soft, warm glow, illuminating the marble floors that were so meticulously polished they reflected his desolate figure. He ran his fingers along the cool, polished surface of the ornate banister that spiraled up to the second floor, where memories of laughter and warmth once filled the air. Now, silence enveloped him like a heavy blanket, suffocating and oppressive. "Mom," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "Where are you?" The question echoed in the empty hall, a haunting reminder of the void left by her absence. Margaret had been everything to him, a guiding light in the tumultuous world of privilege and expectations. But after her tragic death, that light had flickered out, leaving Ethan in darkness. He wandered through the mansion, his footsteps muffled by the plush carpets that lined the hallways. Each room he entered was filled with remnants of happier times. Pictures adorned the walls. Ethan's beaming smile at his mother's side, her arms wrapped around him in a protective embrace. Those moments felt like a lifetime ago, replaced now by an overwhelming sense of neglect and isolation. His father had retreated into his work, drowning his sorrows in business deals and late nights at the office, leaving Ethan to fend for himself. The servants, once friendly faces, now looked through him as if he were a ghost wandering their domain. At school, the torment began anew each day. The laughter of his classmates echoed in his mind like a cruel reminder of his fall from grace. Ryan, once his best friend, was now the ringleader of his misery. "Look who it is," Ryan would taunt, his voice dripping with mockery. "The rich kid who can't even keep his mommy safe." The words cut deep, sharper than any knife, as Ethan was forced to endure the jeers and laughter that followed him down the hall. He had once been the envy of others, the boy who had everything, until everything was taken away. The cafeteria was no refuge either. Ethan sat alone at a table, pushing his food around on the plate, his appetite lost in the whirlwind of grief and humiliation. He could feel the stares of others, the whispers that followed him like a shadow. "Did you hear about his mom?" one girl said, her voice a mixture of pity and curiosity. "I can't believe she died like that." Another chimed in, "He probably poisoned her himself." The laughter that erupted from their table rang in his ears, a cacophony of pain that made his heart ache. After what felt like an eternity, the final bell rang, signaling the end of another torturous day. Ethan gathered his things slowly, his heart heavy with the weight of despair. He knew where he had to go. He slipped out of the school gates, his mind racing with thoughts of the graveyard, where he could finally be alone, away from the judgment and cruelty of his peers. The world outside faded into a blur as he made his way through the streets, each step echoing his feelings of abandonment. The graveyard was serene, a stark contrast to the chaos that ruled his life. The air was crisp, and the leaves rustled gently in the breeze. He approached his mother's grave, a beautifully carved stone adorned with flowers that had long since withered. Kneeling down, Ethan traced the letters of her name, feeling the coldness of the stone beneath his fingertips. "Why did you leave me?" he cried, tears streaming down his cheeks. "Why did you abandon me?" The words escaped his lips with a rawness that left him feeling exposed, vulnerable. His sobs echoed in the stillness, each cry a plea for answers that would never come. He felt utterly alone, a ship lost at sea without a compass, drifting aimlessly. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the graves, Ethan could feel the weight of his sorrow bearing down on him. The world around him faded, and all that remained was the ache in his heart. And then, as if summoned by his despair, a figure emerged from the shadows. A man, tall and impeccably dressed, approached him with a purposeful stride. His presence was commanding, and Ethan felt an inexplicable urge to look up. The man's face was unfamiliar, but something about him felt oddly reassuring. "Ethan," the stranger spoke, his voice deep and smooth, cutting through the heaviness in the air. "I'm William. I was a friend of your mother's." Ethan wiped his tears, trying to make sense of this sudden interruption. "A friend?" he repeated, his voice hoarse. "I don't remember her mentioning you." William smiled gently, the kind of smile that seemed to hold secrets untold. "Your mother had many friends in her life," he replied. "She spoke of you often, you know. She loved you very much." Ethan felt a flicker of warmth at the mention of his mother's love, but it quickly faded. "What do you want?" he asked, his defenses rising. He had learned to be wary of strangers. especially those who seem to appear at the most vulnerable moments. I'm here to help you, William said, his tone earnest. I can offer you a chance to escape this pain, a chance to start anew. You don't have to suffer alone. Ethan's heart raced at the prospect. Escape? How? He demanded, skepticism lacing his words. What do you want from me? There's nothing I want from you except for you to find happiness again, William replied, his eyes locking onto Ethan's with an intensity that made him uneasy. Your mother believed in second chances, and I want to honor her memory. Ethan felt a mix of confusion and hope. And how can you do that? He pressed, his voice trembling slightly. Come with me, William said, extending his hand. I can offer you a place to stay, a life filled with possibilities. You don't have to be alone anymore. For a moment, Ethan hesitated, torn between the fear of the unknown and the desperate longing for companionship. The memories of his mother flooded his mind. Her warmth, her laughter, her unwavering belief that he was destined for greatness. Perhaps this was the opportunity she would have wanted for him. Slowly he reached out, taking William's hand. Okay, he said softly, a glimmer of hope igniting within him. I'll come with you. As they walked away from the grave, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter was only the beginning. The path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, but for the first time in months, he felt a flicker of something he thought was lost forever. Hope. As Ethan knelt by the grave of his mother, the chill of the early evening air wrapped around him like a shroud. The tombstone, polished and pristine, bore her name, Margaret Dawson, etched in elegant script that seemed to taunt him with memories of a life once filled with laughter and warmth. Now, all that remained were shadows. Shadows of a boy who used to play in the sprawling gardens of their mansion. Shadows of a boy loved and cherished by a mother who had been taken from him too soon. Tears streamed down Ethan's face as he pressed his forehead against the cold marble. Why did you abandon me? He cried out, his voice cracking with pain. I needed you. I still need you. The words echoed in the stillness of the cemetery, swallowed by the night, leaving behind an emptiness that gnawed at his insides. He was alone, entirely alone. His father had retreated into his own world of grief, leaving Ethan to fend for himself. His mother's friends had vanished, unwilling to face the reality of her loss, and his classmates at school had turned into wolves, circling their prey. All Ethan had now were the bitter memories of a life that had crumbled around him and the relentless bullying that awaited him each day at school. Just as despair threatened to engulf him, a figure emerged from the shadows. Dressed impeccably in a tailored suit, the man approached with a calm confidence that contrasted sharply with the storm raging within Ethan. Ethan Dawson? The man asked, his voice smooth and reassuring. Ethan looked up, wiping his tears hastily with the back of his hand. Who are you? He demanded, suspicion creeping into his tone. He wasn't in the mood for strangers, especially ones who could be more harbingers of his grief. I'm William, the man replied, a gentle smile playing on his lips. I was a friend of your mother. We went to school together many years ago. Ethan regarded him warily, his heart pounding. What do you want? He asked, keeping his distance. I want to help you, William said, sincerity shining in his eyes. I know this is a difficult time for you, but I believe your mother would have wanted you to have someone to look after you. Look after me? Ethan scoffed, anger rising like bile in his throat. Where were you when she needed you? Where were all of her so-called friends? You think I want your help? I don't need anyone. William's expression softened. I understand your anger, Ethan. It's justified. But you don't have to go through this alone. Your mother loved you deeply, and I want to honor her memory by making sure you are taken care of. Ethan felt a flicker of something. Was it hope? He had been so entrenched in his misery that the notion of someone wanting to help him seemed foreign, almost alien. What do you mean, taken care of? He asked, his voice losing some of its edge. I have a place you can stay, William said, gesturing towards a sleek black car parked nearby. It's a beautiful apartment, and you won't have to worry about anything. You can focus on healing, on finding your way again. Ethan hesitated, torn between the instinct to flee and the desperate longing for a lifeline. Why would you do this for me? He asked, narrowing his eyes. What's in it for you? William chuckled softly, shaking his head. Nothing at all, Ethan. I promise you that. I simply want to help you find a better path. You deserve it, and your mother would have wanted it. Reluctantly, Ethan considered the offer. The thought of returning to the emptiness of his mansion was suffocating. "What if I don't like it?" he muttered, crossing his arms defensively. "Then you're free to leave," William said, his tone firm yet kind. "But I believe you'll find it's a good fit for you. It's a chance to start anew, away from the pain of the past." Ethan's heart raced at the thought of a fresh beginning, but doubt lingered at the edges of his mind. "Okay," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'll go with you." "Good choice," William replied, a look of relief washing over his face. He extended his hand, and after a moment's hesitation, Ethan took it. The warmth of the man's grip sent a shiver down his spine, a stark contrast to the cold solitude he had grown accustomed to. As they drove through the city, Ethan stared out the window, watching the world speed by. The towering skyscrapers loomed like giants, and the streets pulsated with life, a stark contrast to the desolation he felt inside. He felt as though he was stepping into another realm, one filled with colors and sounds he had long since forgotten. William's apartment was located in a luxury high-rise, the kind of place Ethan had only seen in magazines. The lobby was adorned with marble floors and elegant chandeliers that sparkled like stars. As they ascended in the elevator, Ethan's heart pounded with anticipation. "Here we are," William said, sliding open the door to an expansive living space. The apartment was furnished tastefully, with plush sofas, art adorning the walls, and a view that overlooked the city skyline. Ethan stepped inside, his breath hitching in his throat. It was beautiful, almost surreal. "Wow," he breathed, taking in the surroundings. "This is incredible." "I'm glad you like it," William said, a hint of pride in his voice. "You'll have your own room, of course. There's also a kitchen, and I stocked it with food. You can make yourself at home." Ethan wandered through the apartment, his fingers grazing the surfaces of the furniture, as if he was afraid it might vanish if he touched it too hard. This was wealth, and yet it felt strange to him. "Why are you doing this?" he asked again, returning to William, who was watching him with an understanding gaze. "Because I believe everyone deserves a second chance," William replied earnestly. "Your mother was a remarkable woman, and I want to ensure that her legacy lives on through you." "Second chance?" Ethan echoed, feeling a mix of hope and skepticism. "You really think I can have that?" "Absolutely," William affirmed. "It won't be easy, but you have potential. You just need the right support." Ethan thought about the bullying, the isolation, the shame that had become his constant companions. "I don't know if I'm worthy of that," he confessed, his voice trembling. William stepped closer, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You are more than worthy, Ethan. You have a bright future ahead of you if you choose to embrace it. You just need to believe in yourself as much as I believe in you." For the first time in a long while, a spark of hope ignited within Ethan. He looked around the apartment again, taking in the luxury, the warmth, the possibilities. "I'll try," he said, a newfound determination creeping into his voice. "I'll try to believe." "Good," William said, a smile breaking across his face. "That's all I ask for now. We'll take it one step at a time." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow through the large windows, Ethan felt the weight of his past begin to lift, if only slightly. In that moment, surrounded by the promise of a new beginning, he dared to envision a future where he wouldn't just survive, but thrive. Ethan stood in front of the mirror, taking in the reflection of a boy he hardly recognized. The tailored blazer hugged his shoulders perfectly, and the crisp white shirt underneath gleamed like fresh snow. The new jeans, a far cry from the tattered ones he had worn for too long, fit him like a glove. He turned from side to side, almost expecting to see remnants of his former self slip away with every movement. "Looking sharp, Ethan," William said, leaning against the door frame, arms crossed, a proud smile plastered across his face. "You're ready for a new beginning." Ethan's heart raced at the thought of school. Just a week ago, the thought of walking through those doors filled him with dread. Now, with William's support and this new wardrobe, he felt a glimmer of hope. "Do you really think they'll accept me?" Ethan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. William stepped into the room, placing a reassuring hand on Ethan's shoulder. "You have to believe in yourself. You're not the same boy they used to bully. You've got a chance to show them the real you." With a deep breath, Ethan nodded, convincing himself that he could embrace this change. He grabbed a new backpack, filled with supplies William had provided, and headed out. The sunlight felt different against his skin, warmer and more inviting. As he walked toward the school, Ethan noticed how the world around him seemed to shift. The shadows of his past lingered, but they were less oppressive now. He could hear the distant chatter of students, the laughter that had once felt like daggers to his heart. Upon entering the school, Ethan felt the weight of dozens of eyes on him. Whispers erupted, and he recognized a few faces from his tormentor's crew. Ryan, with his smug grin, stood at the center, flanked by his usual entourage. "Look who decided to show up," Ryan called out, his tone dripping with mockery. "Freshly outfitted, are we? Got a new daddy to pay for all that?" Ethan clenched his fists, fighting back the flood of emotions rising within him. Instead of responding, he straightened his back and walked past Ryan, ignoring the taunts. The hallway felt like a battleground, but this time, he refused to be the victim. In his first class, whispers faded into murmurs as Ethan took his seat. The teacher, Miss Thompson, greeted him with a warm smile. "Welcome back, Ethan. I'm glad to see you." Ethan managed a small smile, feeling the tension in his shoulders lessen. As the class progressed, he found himself participating more than he ever had. The knowledge he'd absorbed while studying alone at home under William's guidance spilled out easily. During lunch, Ethan sat at a table with a few classmates who had been friendly toward him in the past. They seemed genuinely curious about his transformation, asking where he got his new clothes. Ethan felt a sense of camaraderie that had long been absent from his life. "Did you hit the jackpot or something?" one girl asked, her eyes wide. Ethan chuckled nervously. "Something like that. Just a fresh start." But in the back of his mind, he could still feel Ryan's piercing gaze. The bully had retreated for now, but Ethan knew he wouldn't be left alone for long. Later that day, as Ethan left school, he felt a strange mix of exhilaration and anxiety. He had faced his peers and even earned some respect, but Ryan was always lurking, waiting for the opportune moment to strike again. When Ethan returned to William's apartment, he found the man waiting for him with a snack spread on the table. "How was your first day?" William asked, his eyes sparkling with interest. "It was different," Ethan replied, biting into an apple. "People noticed me. They actually talked to me." "That's fantastic. You're making progress, Ethan. But remember, it's not just about fitting in. It's about finding your own place in this world." Ethan nodded, appreciating William's wisdom. He felt a twinge of guilt for the life he had left behind, but the promise of a new beginning was intoxicating. However, the next few days saw a shift. While Ethan initially enjoyed the newfound attention, whispers began to circulate, casting shadows over his progress. "Did you hear about Ethan's mom?" one girl whispered in the hallway, glancing over her shoulder. "They say she was poisoned by someone close to them." Ethan's heart sank at the mention of his mother. It felt like a fresh wound, reopening with every passing comment. He tried to shake it off, but the weight of those whispers clung to him, making it harder to breathe. One afternoon during gym class, while he was trying to focus on his game, Ryan approached him, flanked by a couple of his cronies. "So Ethan," Ryan sneered, "how does it feel to wear those pretty clothes while your mother rots in the ground?" The words were like knives, piercing through Ethan's newfound confidence. He felt the eyes of his classmates on him, and for a moment he thought he might crumble. "Enough, Ryan," one of his classmates shouted, stepping between them. "You're being a jerk." Ethan's heart swelled with gratitude for his classmate, but Ryan just laughed it off. "Oh, look, the loser's got a little support. Doesn't change the fact that he's still a nobody." As Ryan turned away, Ethan felt anger bubble within him. "Why do you care so much?" he shouted, surprising even himself. "You think you're better than me? You're just a coward hiding behind your friends." The gym fell silent, everyone's eyes glued to the confrontation. Ryan froze for a moment, his expression shifting from amusement to rage. "You think you can talk to me like that? You're still trash, Ethan. Just wait, I'll show you your place." Ethan's heart raced, fear mingling with adrenaline. He had stepped into a world where he could be respected, but here was Ryan, ready to drag him back into the depths of despair. After gym class, Ethan found himself sitting alone on a bench outside, trying to process what had just happened. The laughter and chatter of students felt distant, like echoes of a life he no longer belonged to. "Hey," a voice interrupted his thoughts. It was the same classmate who had defended him earlier, a boy named Alex. "You okay?" Ethan forced a smile. "I will be. Just, Ryan knows how to get under my skin." "Don't let him. You've come so far. Those who matter see the changes in you." Ethan appreciated the support, but doubt still gnawed at him. What if it's all just a facade? What if I'm still that kid everyone hated? Alex shook his head. You're not. You just have to keep proving it to yourself. You have William and he believes in you. That counts for something, right? Yeah, Ethan replied, his voice barely above a whisper. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the school grounds, Ethan felt a surge of determination. He would not let Ryan drag him back. He would rise above the whispers and the pain. When he returned to William's apartment that evening, he found it filled with the aroma of a home-cooked meal. William greeted him with a warm smile. How was your day? Ethan took a deep breath, letting the warmth of the moment wash over him. It was challenging, but I think I'm finally ready to confront my past. William's expression softened. That's the spirit. Remember, you're not alone in this. We'll get through it together. With those words echoing in his mind, Ethan felt a sense of hope bloom within him. The journey ahead would not be easy, but he was ready to face whatever came next. Ethan had never anticipated that the remnants of his past would come crashing into his new life so soon. The luxury of his apartment, furnished with soft leather couches and gleaming hardwood floors, offered a stark contrast to the cold, hollow halls of his family's mansion. Yet amidst the trappings of wealth, Ethan felt an insatiable void gnawing at him. It was on one of those quiet afternoons, while sifting through a box of his mother's belongings, that he stumbled upon her hidden journals. The moment he opened the first journal, the scent of old paper and ink wafted into the air, transporting him back to moments he shared with his mother, her warm laughter echoing in the back of his mind. He turned to the first entry, written in her elegant handwriting, and felt a pang of longing as if he could reach out and touch her once more. Dear Ethan, it began, the words flowing with emotion. I am writing this to you, hoping one day you will understand the choices I've made. Life has a way of challenging us, and I fear the people around you may not have your best interests at heart. He paused, his heart racing as he flipped through the pages. Each entry revealed fragments of his mother's life, her struggles, her fears, and the eerie premonitions she had about those close to them. It was as if she had foreseen the very betrayal that would shatter their lives. The ink smudged in places, suggesting tears had fallen on the pages, and Ethan felt a wave of sorrow wash over him. Trust is fragile, my dear Ethan. One entry read, I have seen the darkness in the hearts of those who claim to love us. Be cautious, my son. Not everyone who smiles at you is a friend. He closed the journal, overwhelmed by the weight of her words. It was then that he realized the importance of William in his life. William had stepped in when Ethan felt utterly alone, offering not just a roof over his head, but a newfound sense of belonging. The bond between them had deepened in the days since Ethan had moved in. William was patient and wise, always encouraging Ethan to embrace his potential. He had become a father figure, filling the void left by his mother's tragic departure. Ethan, are you ready? William's voice broke through his thoughts, rich and soothing. He stood at the doorway, dressed impeccably in a tailored suit, his presence exuding confidence. We have that charity event tonight, remember? Ethan nodded, forcing a smile. The thought of mingling with the elite made his stomach churn, but he was determined to face his fears. Yeah, just give me a moment. I want to finish reading this. William stepped closer, his brow furrowing with concern. What are you reading? My mother's journals, Ethan replied, his voice barely above a whisper. She knew something was wrong. She was worried about the people around us. William's expression shifted. She was a perceptive woman. Sometimes the ones we trust the most can lead us astray. But you have me now, Ethan. I won't let anyone hurt you again. Ethan felt a warmth spreading within him at William's words. I know. It's just hard to shake the past. I feel like I'm still that boy who lost everything. You're not that boy anymore, William replied firmly. You have a bright future ahead of you. Let's make tonight a celebration of new beginnings. As they arrived at the venue, a grand hall adorned with crystal chandeliers and lavish decor, Ethan felt his nerves intensify. The sound of laughter and clinking glasses filled the air, and he recognized a few familiar faces from school. Despite his initial trepidation, he straightened his posture and walked alongside William, who was a reassuring presence. Remember, just be yourself, William encouraged, gesturing toward a group of students who were mingling nearby. You've come a long way. You deserve to enjoy this. Ethan spotted a few classmates, their expressions shifting from curiosity to surprise as he entered. He felt a surge of confidence wash over him. Perhaps he could finally carve out a place for himself in this new world. But as he scanned the room, his gaze landed on Ryan, who stood with a group of his sycophants, a smug smile plastered across his face. Ethan's heart raced, anger bubbling beneath the surface. He clenched his fists, recalling the torment he had endured at Ryan's hands. "I can't believe he's here," Ethan muttered, his voice laced with disdain. "Stay calm," William advised, his tone measured. "You're in control now. Don't let him provoke you." But Ethan could feel the weight of old wounds reopening. With a resolve he didn't fully understand, he stepped away from William and headed toward Ryan, the crowd parting as he approached. "Ethan, look who decided to join us," Ryan sneered, his voice dripping with mockery. "The rich kid who lost everything. How's the new life treating you?" The laughter of Ryan's friends echoed around them, and Ethan felt his face flush with humiliation. "I'm not here to play games, Ryan," he said, his voice steady despite the tumult of emotions within him. "I want to know why you betrayed me and my family." Ryan's expression faltered for a moment, replaced by a flicker of something darker. "Betrayed? You really think you know what happened?" He leaned closer, a smirk creeping onto his lips. "You have no idea how deep this goes." Ethan's heart raced as he took a step closer, his voice low and intense. "Don't play games with me. You poisoned my mother. You were there when it happened." The laughter around them faded, replaced by a tense silence. Ryan's eyes narrowed, a glimmer of fear mingling with amusement. "You think you're so clever now, don't you? Just because you have a fancy apartment and a rich friend doesn't mean you're untouchable." William stepped forward, positioning himself beside Ethan. "I suggest you watch your words, Ryan. This isn't a playground anymore." "Who are you to threaten me?" Ryan shot back, his bravado faltering. "You're nothing but a washed-up nobody trying to play the father figure." Ethan felt a rush of adrenaline. "You don't intimidate me anymore, Ryan. I'm done letting you control my life." With a flourish of bravado, Ethan turned and walked away, leaving Ryan sputtering in disbelief behind him. The tension in the room was palpable, and Ethan could feel the eyes of his classmates on him, a mix of astonishment and admiration. William caught up to him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "That took courage, Ethan. You stood your ground." Ethan took a deep breath, the adrenaline still coursing through his veins. "I don't want to be afraid of him anymore. I need to confront my past, but—" He hesitated, glancing back at Ryan, who was now speaking in hushed tones with his friends. "I'm not sure I'm ready for what that means." "Facing the truth can be daunting," William replied softly. "But you have the strength to handle whatever comes next. We'll figure this out together, I promise." As the night wore on, Ethan felt a mixture of exhilaration and dread. Confronting Ryan had been a pivotal moment, but he sensed that the confrontation was just the beginning. The journals, William's support, and the lingering shadows of his past were all leading to something greater. And as he glanced at the crowd, he realized he could no longer ignore the whispers of betrayal that echoed in his mind. The truth was waiting to be uncovered, and he was determined to find it, even if it meant delving into the darkest corners of his mother's life. With each step, Ethan felt the weight of the night pressing down on him, a reminder that, while he had taken a stand, the battle for his peace was far from over. The journey ahead would require all the courage he could muster. Ethan sat at the edge of his bed, the luxurious surroundings of William's apartment feeling both foreign and unsettling. Sunlight streamed through the large windows, illuminating the polished wooden floors and tasteful decor, yet his heart felt heavy with the weight of his past. In the corner of the room, a small desk held a collection of his mother's belongings, her journals, photographs, and various trinkets that had once filled their home with warmth. Yet now, they felt like remnants of a life that had been irrevocably shattered. William entered the room, his presence commanding yet comforting. He had become a steady force in Ethan's life, and Ethan was grateful for the guidance he provided. "Ethan," he said, his voice smooth and reassuring, "I have something important to discuss with you." Ethan turned his gaze toward William, curiosity piqued. "What is it?" he asked, his brow furrowing slightly. William took a seat beside him, his demeanor serious. "Your mother set up a trust fund for you before she passed away. It's substantial and will ensure you have a bright future, covering your education and living expenses. You won't have to worry about financial struggles anymore." Ethan felt a rush of conflicting emotions, relief mingled with anger and sorrow. Why didn't I know about this before? All this time, I thought I was completely alone. William placed a reassuring hand on Ethan's shoulder. Your mother wanted to keep it from you until you were ready. She didn't want you to feel burdened by it during her illness. You could have had a different life if things had gone differently. But what about all those years of bullying, of being treated like trash? Ethan's voice cracked, the anger boiling over. I could have had help. I could have had a chance to be happy. William nodded, understanding the pain behind Ethan's words. It's a lot to process, but you have a choice now. You can rebuild your life, and I'll be here to help you. We can confront Ryan together about what happened to your mother. I believe he knows more than he's let on. Ethan's heart raced at the thought of confronting Ryan. The boy who had tormented him, who had reveled in his misery, was not just a bully. He was a part of Ethan's past that he wanted to escape from, yet he felt an undeniable pull to uncover the truth. Do you really think he holds the key to everything? Ethan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I do. He was close to your mother, and I suspect he was involved in the events leading up to her death. William replied, his eyes steady and confident. With a nod, Ethan steeled himself. Okay, let's do it. I need to know what really happened. As they devised their plan, Ethan rummaged through the box of his mother's belongings, searching for anything that could help. His fingers brushed against a delicate envelope, yellowed with age, tucked beneath a stack of letters. He pulled it out, intrigued. The envelope bore no return address, only his mother's elegant handwriting scrawled across the front. William, look at this, Ethan called, holding up the envelope. It was hidden in here. William took the envelope and examined it closely. This could be important. Open it. Ethan hesitated, feeling the weight of his mother's memory in his hands. He took a deep breath and carefully tore the envelope open. Inside, he found a single sheet of paper, folded neatly. As he unfolded it, he felt a chill run down his spine. The words were familiar yet foreign, swirling with emotions he couldn't quite grasp. My dearest Ethan, he read aloud, his voice trembling slightly. If you're reading this, it means that I'm no longer with you. I need you to know that my love for you is eternal. There are things in this world that are darker than we can imagine, and I fear for your safety. Trust no one completely, not even those who claim to care for you. Ethan's heart raced as he continued. Ryan is not who he seems. The choices he made will haunt him, and I hope you find it in your heart to forgive him one day. You must stay vigilant and find the truth, no matter how painful it may be. He paused, glancing at William, whose expression had shifted to one of concern. What does she mean? Ethan whispered, a sense of dread creeping over him. What truth? William took a moment before responding, his voice low. Your mother had a strong intuition. She knew something was off, and she wanted to protect you. Whatever Ryan is hiding, it's tied to those words. Ethan folded the letter and placed it back in the envelope, his mind racing. I don't know if I can face him now. If my mother was afraid of him, what does that mean for me? William leaned closer, his eyes locked onto Ethan's. It means you need to be prepared. We'll go as a team. You have me by your side, and together we can confront him. Just remember, he may try to manipulate you. Ethan nodded, resolve building within him. He had spent too long being a victim. It was time to reclaim his life. Let's do this. I want to know the truth, whatever it may be. As they planned their approach, Ethan felt a mix of fear and determination. The letter weighed heavily in his pocket, a tangible reminder of the unknowns that lay ahead. He thought about his mother's love, the sacrifices she had made for him, and the trust she had placed in him to find the truth. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the room. Time felt fleeting, as if every moment brought him closer to a confrontation that could shatter everything he thought he knew. But he was ready. He would no longer be the boy who cowered in the corner. He would stand tall and face the darkness that threatened to consume him. Tomorrow we confront Ryan, Ethan declared, his voice steady. I'll do whatever it takes to uncover the truth. William smiled, pride evident in his eyes. That's the spirit, Ethan. We'll face this together. As they finalized their plans, a newfound sense of hope flickered within Ethan. He was no longer alone. He had a purpose, a mission to uncover the truth about his mother and the shadows that loomed over his past. And with that thought, he felt ready to step into the unknown, driven by the love of a mother and the promise of a brighter future. Ethan stood at the edge of the small park, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows as it dipped below the horizon. His heart raced with a mix of apprehension and anger. Beside him, William exuded an air of calm confidence, his tailored suit a stark contrast to the worn jeans and t-shirt Ethan wore, remnants of his previous life. Today was the day they would confront Ryan, the boy who had turned Ethan's world upside down after his mother's death. "Are you ready for this?" William asked, his voice steady. He placed a reassuring hand on Ethan's shoulder. Ethan nodded, though his stomach churned. "I have to know the truth," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. The letter tucked away in his pocket felt heavier than before, a physical reminder of the secrets that lurked just beneath the surface of his new existence. As they approached the park's center, Ethan spotted Ryan leaning against a tree, his arms crossed and a smirk on his face. He was flanked by a couple of his friends, each wearing expressions of mockery as they noticed Ethan's approach. "Well, if it isn't the little rich boy and his sugar daddy," Ryan sneered, his tone dripping with contempt. "What do you want? Come to beg for a little sympathy?" Ethan clenched his fists, fighting the urge to lash out. "We need to talk, Ryan, just you and me." Ryan laughed, a harsh sound that echoed in the cool evening air. "Oh, really? What's the matter? Afraid I'll tell everyone the truth about your mother?" William stepped forward, his presence imposing. "This isn't a game, Ryan. We know more than you think." Ryan's smirk faltered for a brief moment, but he quickly regained his composure. "What do you want to know? That she was weak? That she deserved what happened to her?" Ethan felt his breath hitch. "Stop it," he demanded, his voice trembling with a mix of rage and sorrow. "You have no idea what you're talking about." "Oh, but I do," Ryan replied, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Your mother had plans, Ethan, plans that didn't include you." "What?" Ethan's heart raced, confusion swirling in his mind. "What are you talking about?" Ryan stepped closer, his eyes glinting with a mix of malice and triumph. "She was involved in something much bigger than you can imagine. You were just a pawn in her game." "Enough!" William's voice boomed, cutting through the tension like a knife. "You think you can just throw accusations around without proof?" Ryan shrugged, the cockiness returning to his demeanor. "What proof do you want? I'm just telling the truth. She was going to make some powerful friends, and you were just in the way." Ethan's mind raced as he processed Ryan's words. "You're lying," he said, though the uncertainty in his voice betrayed him. "My mother loved me. She would never—" "Loved you?" Ryan interrupted, his voice rising. "She had bigger dreams, dreams that didn't include a son who would drag her down. You think she cared about you? You were just her insurance policy." "Shut up!" Ethan shouted, the hurt reverberating through his chest. "You don't know anything!" Ryan's laughter echoed through the park, a sound that made Ethan's skin crawl. "Oh, I know a lot more than you think. You're just too blind to see it. And you're not the only one who's been left in the dark." "Enough!" William stepped between them, his eyes blazing. "If you have something to say it, but don't play games with us." Ryan leaned back against the tree, a smirk playing on his lips. "Fine, but you're not going to like it." Ethan felt the weight of the moment settle over him, a palpable tension that threatened to unravel everything he had built since his mother's death. "What do you mean?" "Your precious William isn't who you think he is," Ryan said, his voice low and mocking. "He's been playing you this whole time." Ethan's heart dropped, disbelief washing over him. "What are you talking about?" "William knew your mother," Ryan continued, his tone dripping with insidious satisfaction. "But he also knew about her plans. She wasn't just some victim. She was a player in a much larger game. And William? He's still in the game." "Stop it," Ethan said, though the words felt weak and pathetic. He turned to William, searching for reassurance in his mentor's eyes. "You're not— You would tell me if that were true, right?" William's expression remained stoic, but Ethan could see the flicker of concern behind his composed facade. "Ethan, listen to me. Ryan is trying to manipulate you. His words are designed to unsettle you." "Am I?" Ryan chimed in, feigning innocence. "Or am I just revealing the truth? Your mother had enemies, Ethan, people who would do anything to silence her. And William, he had his own reasons for keeping you close." Ethan felt as if the ground had shifted beneath his feet. The letter in his pocket felt like a ticking time bomb, threatening to explode the fragile reality he had constructed. "You're lying," he whispered, but the uncertainty gnawed at him. "Am I?" Ryan shot back. "Tell me, Ethan, do you really think William is here out of the goodness of his heart, or is it because he needs you for something else?" The accusation hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Ethan glanced at William, searching for a sign, an indication that everything would be okay. But the expression on William's face was unreadable, a mask that hid his true thoughts. "Ryan, you need to leave," William said finally, his voice cold and authoritative. "You've said enough." Ryan shrugged, his smirk unwavering. "I'll be around, Ethan. Just remember what I said. Sometimes the people you trust the most are the ones you should be wary of." With that, he turned and sauntered away, leaving behind a heavy silence that felt like a storm brewing on the horizon. Ethan stood frozen, the weight of Ryan's words pressing down on him. "William, is any of that true?" he asked, his voice trembling. William sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Ethan, I understand how this must sound, but Ryan is a master manipulator. He preys on weakness." "But what if he's right?" Ethan's voice cracked, fear creeping into his chest. "What if you're not who you say you are?" "I am who I say I am," William replied, his tone firm. "I'm here to help you, not to harm you. But we need to focus on the real enemy. Ryan is trying to drive a wedge between us." Ethan looked down at the letter in his pocket, the very thing that had brought him to this moment. The letter. "It's from my mother." It hinted at something bigger. What if it does contain the truth? William stepped closer, his expression softening. "Then we'll face it together. We'll uncover the truth about your mother. But you have to trust me." Ethan hesitated, his mind racing with doubt and fear. "I don't know who to trust anymore." William nodded, understanding the turmoil within him. "I know this is hard, but we're in this together. Let's find out what your mother wanted you to know." As they stood there, the sun finally dipped below the horizon, casting the park into an eerie twilight. Ethan felt a surge of determination. He would uncover the truth, no matter what it took. But the shadows of doubt loomed large, and he could feel that this was just the beginning of a much darker journey.